Hi, everybody, and welcome back to Elevate Your Business, Your Career TV. Scott Stolze sitting here again with my co-host David Newkirk. Happy Monday, David. How are you doing today?
I'm good. Although I feel you would know I'm 6'4" and much taller than you because I'm in the principal's office and my chair's a lot lower than yours.
We have to give David the lower chair because in real life he's much taller than me. So, well, a couple inches, right?
Couple.
This is
Plus
how it
some.
works out. We'll switch it around next time. You know, David and I are joining for a few minutes tonight because we teed up last week, a month around the theme of how to stay relevant in your career. And one of the big parts of relevancy and growing ourselves, of course, is feedback. Getting feedback, and it's so critical about who we get it from, how we approach feedback. So we wanted, as we kick off this week, and David and I just spent a whole afternoon doing some work together, much of which was predicated on feedback we've been getting. So we wanted to jump on for a few minutes and share a few thoughts about how you can approach feedback in your career, whether you work for a big company, a mid-sized company, or have your own business, because it's really critical these days to be open. So David, let's just, starting high level, what's one of your rules of thumb or guiding principles for approaching feedback, be it around who you go to or what kind of stuff you're looking for?
I think it's actually two very quick ones, high level. One is going in where it's not up to you to try to change somebody's mind, because soliciting feedback is someone has a mindset on something and that you're there to receive and understand the feedback. You're not there to try to change somebody's mind about the feedback.
So does that mean we just listen the whole time, or how do we do that?
It's listening, but it's also asking questions to understand. You want to have context, you want to understand where they're coming from, why they're coming from that perspective, because then it helps you understand, is there anything that they're not understanding about the situation or about you that could add clarity that may eventually reposition them in terms of their feedback. But most often than not, people provide feedback where they're pretty much decided. But if you go in where you're just focused on looking for things to change on that mindset, you're less listening. You're not listening, and you're not learning. You're just defending. And feedback's not about defending; it's about growth.
So one of the things I'm hearing, and listen, if you jump on now, or even if you see this later on replay, questions, shoot them down below. Comment, engage with David and I. Let us know. We'll come back this week to talk more about feedback. What it is you'd like to know as you approach, get ready for reviews and getting feedback from peers and clients and whomever it might be. But part of what I'm hearing from you is have questions prepared. When you go to somebody for feedback, know what you want to ask them. Is that what you suggest?
That's absolutely right. So, we talked about like relevancy, right? That's the whole theme for this month. To be relevant, I know if I was a manager giving feedback, I would hate the question where someone says, how do I stay relevant? I mean, there's no context on that. It's such a big question.
Yeah.
But instead of saying, hey, Mary or Bob or whoever your manager is, from your perspective, how are people staying relevant in their position here so they continue to grow and have an upward trend in their, for promotability? When you ask a question like that, it's actually disarming because you're getting the answer that you want, but when you're not putting yourself first in the question, you're actually putting it in saying, hey, what are your thoughts and how do you see relevancy just being important in what anyone needs to do to be successful here? In this company, in this type of job, and you use it as a learning, say, how did I then apply it to myself? And maybe that's a follow-up meeting with your boss afterwards.
So it's almost like you framed for the boss or the person you went to. You literally drew it up for them, like how does it work for so-and-so, instead of just making it about yourself?
Totally.
Does that mean, in part, just unpacking this a little bit more, that you're taking them off the hook so that they don't feel like they're giving you something that's putting them on the line to say something either constructive or critical?
So I'll tell you what the typical mindset is of the business manager is. They hate performance reviews and they hate giving feedback. It's not because they want to do it, but they already go in like, deep breath, I have to defend everything I have to say. And they feel like
qualify it.
Totally, and they feel like, oh my gosh, this is not going to be a fun conversation because they're just going to constantly, batter me with the questions and try to change my mind and make me think differently, and there's no upside.
Yeah.
So in order to neutralize that, you want to ask them questions that are not biased and that are more open, which is more welcoming. And then, like for example, at the end, You can say, I learned so much from this conversation. I'm going to think about how this applies to me. Can I come back and have a meeting with you on some things I think I'd like to map out relative to what you shared for my career? That's such a better way to do it.
I hope I hope anybody who's watching this or sees this later, really, that's such good advice. I mean, seriously, that is something that I wish as a manager. I was always a middle manager in a couple of roles that I had. I would have loved for people to come to me with that mindset and the follow up, because I think a lot. And maybe you're a manager. Maybe you watching this right now, you are a manager or a leader, and you have people on your team, and you feel pressure or anxiety, right? Because they are all coming to you wanting that, and it's more on your shoulders than it is on them to say, how am I going to get better?
So think about it. The manager has anxiety coming into the meeting. You have anxiety coming into the meeting.
Yeah,
and,
not a good mix.
Right. You're like, oh gosh, but how's this going to come out well? But you're not taking anyone off the table, but you also are trying to form a relationship with your manager so that they become your advocates. So as you are trying to navigate and relevant, they're actually guiding you the way you want, but it can't be all in one meeting. Give me feedback, let me contest whatever I don't agree with, let me change your mind, and then after that, tell me everything I need to do. That's a tall order for a manager in one conversation.
So interjecting a quick summary, then I'm going to have one more question, and we'll wrap for tonight, though, is be prepared with the questions, okay? Take onus, take responsibility for David's guidance here, and go in with questions that you want to ask, but that are done in a way that can structure frame the conversation in a really productive way, and then always look for a follow-up. You look for a follow-up meeting. That's the part that's really unusual to me.
So here's what I think works really well for a manager who obviously is trying to reduce their stress for that meeting and during the meeting. Thank them. Doesn't matter if you agree or not. You should be thanking them for actually being vocal and sharing, regardless of whether you agree with it, because that took a lot for them to do. So the fact that you appreciate that and you tell them that goes a long way with them, because what you've done is you've lowered a mental barrier for them. So when you say, there's a lot for me to think about here, this feedback is awesome, thank you so much, you've given me guidance, I want to take a couple of days and think about this. Can I come back to you and run some things by you as to how I think this may apply to me?
Yeah.
They'll be like relieved, but also engaged. And you want that second conversation because you don't know where that'll go, and then maybe they'll set you up to talk to somebody else. And say, hey, you should talk to so-and-so in such and such a department. They had some of the similar things that you've been trying to address. They've already been there. They might be a good mentor for you. You never know where this is going to go. So you just got to be able to open it up and create the opportunity of more conversation.
So I know, okay, this is fantastic. This is great material. So why don't we do this? I know you and I are back together to do our next video together this week on Thursday. So for everybody out there watching, if you're watching this Thursday, David and I will be together for another combo video. There will be a solo one in between. My second question was going to be, what does somebody then do with the feedback, and not just to follow up with the boss, but let's say somebody goes out. So let's give them a little teaser, and we'll unpack this a lot more in depth on Thursday. We'll save this one for Thursday. Say I go out to colleagues or people on my team or a client, and I'm getting a lot of input about everything from my demeanor and behavior to my execution to Scott. I think you need to be better. How much stock? Because you just did a lot of good tactical approach for receiving feedback from your manager. How do we approach when we're getting it from peers and clients? What's something we can tee them up with, and then come back on Thursday to talk about that more? Because I'll say this. Sorry,
I hear you.
You don't want to care. You don't want to put the same amount of weight in everybody's feedback. What if it's a client who's a terrible client? Do you put the same amount of weight in their feedback as you would one of your A clients?
So it's a great question. I love that question. I think that what it comes down to is you never want to be in a position of reacting to it in the moment. You want to be able to think about it. So again, I think the key thing is you accept the feedback, you thank them for the feedback, whether you agree with it or not, because you have to remember, and this is something that we'll talk about in I think in the upcoming videos, and I know it's a topic that I want to talk about, explore in more detail, which is if you show a propensity to shut down the feedback with the people that you're asking it from, they will tend to immediately stop giving you feedback going forward. So what ends up happening is you will start to be excised out as anyone wanting to give you feedback to help you, because they'll think it's never appreciated or wanted. It's only contested.
Right.
So you want to be gracious and accept it, and always think about it.
Okay.
You don't want to leave an impression that people are regretting giving you feedback.
No. All right. So we can talk a little bit about how do we mask, or how do we, I don't know, hide seems like a negative word, but not let somebody know if we're struggling with their feedback. Just take it in and then depart and process it and unpack it on your own. I don't know. We'll go into this more on Thursday, I think.
Yeah, I think it has a much deeper conversation, but I mean, how do you deal with customer feedback? I mean, that's a great conversation. How do you deal with peer feedback, etc.? I think that's all good stuff. But those are 5-minute conversations in and of themselves as separate topics.
All right. So listen, now that you know, David and I will be back in a few more days with more detail around how to approach feedback, who you're getting it from, how to weigh it, etc. Let us know, engage. Let us know whatever questions you might have, and we'll be sure to address them later this week. And David, I'm going to put you on the hook right now. He loves when I do this. I think you should also, you were going to do one of your solo videos this week. I think you should spend a few minutes unpacking this on your own too, this topic around getting feedback and processing it. And then you and I can tie up some questions and whatnot on Thursday.
That sounds great.
Group, okay?
Yeah, so I'll have a video out by Wednesday.
All right, sounds good. We'll see you all real soon. And thanks again for joining us on Elevate Your Business, Your Career TV.
Thanks.
Bye-bye.